Hallelujah. Thank you. You may be seated. You know, I noticed when Dr. Mary was talking about Dr. Buddy not being here and always wanted to be around food, she didn't mention the sweets, the chocolate cake, because she didn't want to speak him into backsliding. You remember how he came up here a couple weeks ago and he used that? So, Dr. Buddy, I know he would be here if he could, and we miss him today. And is he watching today, or is he going to be not? He's in class, so we're going to miss him today. Well, this is a good day. We're going to celebrate together today, right? We're going to celebrate in fellowship, Koinonia, is that right? Koinonia Sunday. And how many of you brought your favorite dish? All right. I don't smell anything yet, so I'm glad, because that gives me a little bit longer. I was going to condense my message down to about 20 minutes, because if that chicken starts coming up through the walls, I'm going to lose everybody. But I know that it's still not going to be too long today. So we're going to get done what God wants to get done, and we're going to be able to enjoy fellowship together. I knew that today was the right day for kind of that Thanksgiving celebration when I saw that the Cowboys played at 4:25. You always realize that America's team and God's team. Where's Elder Adele? Where's Adele? She must be downstairs preparing. But you never notice. I mean, the Cowboys always play after lunch at Thanksgiving. So I am a big Cowboys fan, and this year I got to do just a little bit of bragging, but I promise there'll be other years where I can't. Has been plenty of them in the past. Well, the theme for this year is Breakout. It's Breakout. And I believe it was last week or week before I prophesied that this still was yet the time of breakout. It's still going to occur. And I'm going to show you throughout a message today what I believe God is showing us, and how that it's right here upon us. This is it. We're standing at the gateway of that. And, anytime you get ready to exit something, the old, and move into the new, everything the enemy has tried to build up in your life in that old season wants to hold on. When the light is shined on it, the cockroaches run. And so everything, as God begins to move, and you are in your place of whether it be, your wilderness, your last season, your season that wasn't breaking you out, then you get comfortable in that season because you're looking for some form of peace or something that's going to help you cope through that time, right? Your body is adjusting to that. Your mind is adjusting. So if you're in a season of wilderness, then you're going to start to learn to survive in that wilderness. And the enemy is happy to help you just survive. He's happy to help you just hold on. He doesn't want to hear words like breakout. That makes the enemy very nervous when God's people start breaking out. And we're going to study the story in just a little bit, briefly, the story of two kings, where you had Saul and you had David. But as we go through that, I want you to know that I am not equating. David ruled, I think, 40 years over Israel, and Saul ruled 42 years. Okay? So when God looks at America and says, I'm going to turn the country around, it's not about one term of 1/3 of our government. The executive branch of government is only 1/3 of, you've got Congress, you are the judicial branch, and you've got the legislative branch, and then you've got the Supreme Court. So 4 years, we may be getting ready to embark on a season of 40 years. Okay, a season of 40 years. And as Dr. Mary said, no matter which team you are on, let's fly above that and let's get in agreement and in unity over what the Holy Spirit is doing. in how that He's causing, there's a revolution, but it's a spiritual revolution, and we'll talk about the things that God is not. Okay? And then you can determine how to pray for our government as we go forward, and how to bring righteousness and right standing with God back into our nation. So when I compare two kings, I'm not comparing the last president with the future or the one before that. I am looking at a spirit that rules over a kingdom. And I don't know the history of when we took prayer out of schools and when things began to go a different direction, but we've had many presidents serve under that previous principality and spirit. And we should be crying out for mercy and grace. And as revolution comes, then the tables begin to get overturned, and then we can be one nation under God. We don't have to fearfully worry about prayer being removed. We don't have to accept foreign gods. We'll get into that in a moment. See, we've been through some barren times. And in that wilderness time, as I said earlier, the enemy wants to build strongholds of fear, poverty, lack, division, unbelief. And it's easy for us to fall into temptation because our faith is low when the embers of success or the embers of our faith are barely burning, because we're not experiencing the triumphant victory because it's winter outside and there's no leaves on our trees. It's hard to get excited when you walk outside and see a barren stick in the ground and go, look at this growth. You just got to prophesy to that barren tree. But God is causing that tree to grow underground. And you can cut the branches and prune it, and it comes back bigger than ever before. That's what the wilderness time is for. When we get in a barren time, it helps us learn our dependence upon God. And if you can have faith in that time, then it'll be easy for you to possess the season of prosperity and to understand that that cycle comes and goes, but God remains constant, as Elder Phil said today, and Pastor Samuel said, He remains faithful through that time. We as a church have to unify to obtain the power that the Holy Spirit is releasing to do the exploits, provide the leadership. And I promise you that now is the time that God is saying breakout is at hand for those that can perceive it. As I was praying about a message, the Lord began to prophesy to me. He began to speak to me, and He said, I have now, capital N, capital O, capital W, set the stage for those that know, capital K-N-O-W, me and my ways to do exploits, and now is the time for your breakout. Do not miss the breakout in the chains of division and disunity, but unify in love and look unto the future, for I have wonderful plans for you. For this city and nation will need your authority, will need your leadership, and that will begin under my direction in my throne room daily as I instruct you and empower you with my authority. You will carry out my mission one step at a time to see over the next season the greatest impact you, the church, can have. Do not prophesy doom and gloom, for this is not me, saith the Lord. For it is a season of mercy and my grace to come upon this nation as I return to my covenant that I made with the forefathers that founded this nation. The Lord, do not look at the sins of the past, for not one of you is without sin. Yet did I not pay the price for your sin? Do I not have the right to bring this nation back to a place of one nation under God? My eyes are searching for those whose hearts are fully committed, that I might in this time show myself strong. Did I not provide a way for your liberty and your freedom? Do not look to a man or a woman to be your source or your king or queen, but look to me and my ways, and I will cause you to be those that govern from heaven and bring peace and prosperity to all that you place your hand to. Now, something else ended up in my, I don't know how I got to this. Sometimes you're just searching on the computer. I think I might have, I don't even know, but somehow I ended up on, is Judy Mason here today? Anybody know Judy? Raise your hand if you know Judy. A few people. Okay, Judy joined our church, right? Pastor Samuel said a few weeks ago, but she has been ministering on a prophetic team. She's been on my prophetic team a number of times. And she had a few little quotes of the day on her Google Plus, and I felt like the Lord just highlighted a couple of them, and I want to read them to you. The first one she wrote on November 4th, and I was going to get her to come up and read the second one, but she's not here. It says, no matter where you go or what you do, you will always have haters, spectators, commentators, and people who celebrate you. Now let's think about that. We know what a hater is, right? They're just unhappy, jealous, don't like anything going success in your life. A spectator is somebody that just kind of watches. They're not in the game, but they're watching. And they're just, hopefully they're learning. Commentators, anybody got anybody that freely will give you some advice? Not always good advice, maybe well-intended. And then people who celebrate you. Now Judy says, rejoice with the latter, those who celebrate you, and pray for the former. God said if you obey His word, He will make your name great. Genesis 12, 1 through 3. You can't walk in greatness and entertain foolishness at the same time. It's beneath you. Remember, eagles soar in the sky and chickens squawk on the ground. Tell us what you mean, Judy. Eagles don't pay attention to ground level assaults because they are flying too high for it to affect them. Stay your course and soar. God will deal with the chickens. Okay. Then she prophesied on election day. Everybody say, uh-oh. And she says, the enemy has used the media as a mouthpiece to bring about and further perpetuate division, disunity, confusion, and chaos regarding the election. The hype has caused fear, frustration, and anxiety to be unleashed in America. God says America has been in a season of judgment, reaping the seeds this nation has sown. Yet, and still, His hand of mercy and grace has been over this land. It may not look like it, but this is the turning of the tide in America. After the election, there's a cleansing, purification process that America must endure. Prophet Phil prophesied that today. Once that season is over, America will rise to a new level, better than before. It's time to pray. We are about to experience a new awakening of America. Okay, that's good news. Folks, we're not interceding for 4 years. We're interceding for the next generations, our children's children. Over the last 8 years, I've prophesied. I know a little bit, even though it wasn't the same thing as when Jonah had to prophesy, but it was like I would always get called, would you prophesy on the head of the month over the business? Dead center in the wilderness. And I would say, I'll do it. And I'd say, Lord, what do you want me to say? He'd say, tell him I'm giving you streams in the desert. So I'd come up here and I'd find 2 or 3 different ways to prophesy that, and I'd give it 2 or 3 minutes. Prophet Catherine, she likes it real clear. I'd have to write out my points, and I'd find 2 or 3 different ways to tell everybody, have a good time in the desert. Then the Lord, that time would go by, and would you mind prophesying over the business, the economy? I'd say, Lord, surely we're coming out. Surely things are about to turn around. He'd say, tell them I'm teaching them to depend on me and have faith. I'd say, Lord, that sounds just like what I told them last time. I'd get up there with my 3 points, give my 2-minute word. They'd put it on tape. Next time. Tell them that I'm setting up future transition of power where my church will be a voice and it will be heard. And it wasn't until, you get the point, it wasn't until in about the last probably 15, middle of 15, the Lord said, tell them that they're coming out of the wilderness. And I began to get excited, and the Lord said, well, but don't go prophesying things straight up yet, because you got to come out. I gotta heal them. I gotta structure things. I gotta cause a revolution, a transition of power. I gotta turn over the tables. I gotta do all kinds of stuff, but know that it's coming. So I took it, started prophesying that. Now here we are. And I believe we are standing at the doorway of what I would call a hockey stick. You know what a hockey stick is? It just goes like this for about 7 years, and then it goes like that. And I believe the church is there, and I believe we're going to see that in 2017 in our lives and the things that we're believing for. We're going to see that breakout go straight vertical, and we need to be ready for it. But we don't want to get caught up in the ground assaults with the chickens. Because the enemy wants to divide us all up, put labels on us. You're with this political party, you're with this one, you're with this race, you're with this thing, you're this, you're that. Yes, there has been a lot of iniquities and sins in our country. And there always will be with man. Okay, you read some of the things that were in the Bible, and you're like, how could that have happened? You know, how could things have happened? Yes, it happened. And yes, there still is things out there that are social injustice. There is still a lot of healing that has to take place. But guess what, guys? We're the model of that healing. Look around you. This is the most diverse church I can be at. And I'm proud of that. And we need to set the example. And I believe when we take that heart with the Lord, we're not fully healed, and I know that, but I forgive and I'm moving forward. I think then the Spirit is able to attend to us out of the wilderness and say, let's go forward. The Spirit can meet us outside of that wilderness experience and begin to take us to a higher place. The question now is who knows God and who does not. I don't mean who's saved and who's not saved. I mean who understands His truth. Who's an eagle and who's a chicken? Who is in covenant with God and unwilling to be placed in the category or group of people based on political affiliation, party, religion, race, all of that. You know, God created religion. He created our different races. But when He looks at us as Christians and human beings and made in His image. And He's teaching us how to do that, to be the example. In spite of our generational sins, curses, and the things that would try to hinder us or hold us back. It's not hard to know God, but it does require getting real with who He is and who He is not. He is not a God that will place Supreme Court justices in office that will vote for abortion. It's not going to happen. Think about it. You're God. You're the creator. You're creating a human being with a destiny. Do you believe He wove you in your mother's womb? Then is the blood of that child going to cry out to its creator? Don't be confused. He will not do it. Human life is precious to Him. He's not a God that will justify sin. He's not a God that will legalize drugs so that our children will fall prey to the demons of addiction and end up in a cycle of poverty and addiction and defeat. He's not a God that will accept perversion and allow us to live outside the purity and the sanctity of marriage and fornication. He's not a God that will accept gods with a little g. You can't do exploits and violate His principles and compromise or look the other way and say one issue is more important than the other. I realize that both sides don't have all of the truth, and both sides are not representative of every single perfect issue. I realize that. That's why we're neither Democrat nor Republican. That's why we have to make a decision each time as we go along, and we have to pray for this spirit to change, to want to please God in our country and want to do what God wants us to do as a nation. It may not happen with one administration. It may not happen in 4 years or 8 years. But if it gets going in the right direction, the Lord will take it. He'll work with it. And that's what we have to pray as a church can happen. He is bigger, and I've already talked about some of this earlier on. Think about whenever the people rule by popular opinion. You know, Saul was moved by the people. Eventually they'll be led astray, and I'm going to turn in the word in just a moment to Exodus 32. But it's a situation where Moses had gone up to the mountain to meet with God. And the people basically said, let's just look at that. In Exodus 32, just to see if maybe this is the direction our nation has been heading over the last few decades with political correctness, acceptance of sin, and the removal of Christianity throughout. The golden calf. Exodus 32. When the people saw that Moses, this is the NIV, when the people saw that Moses was so long and coming down from the mountain, they gathered around Aaron and said, "Come make us gods. Who will go before us? As for this fellow Moses who brought us up out of Egypt, we don't know what has happened to him." Aaron answered them, "Take off your gold earrings that your wives, your sons, your daughters are wearing and bring them to me." So all the people took off their earrings and brought them to Aaron. He took what they handed him and made it into an idol cast in the shape of a calf, fashioning with a tool. Then they said, "These are your gods, Israel, who brought you out of Egypt." When Aaron saw this, he built an altar in front of the calf and announced, "Tomorrow there will be a festival to the Lord." So the next day the people rose early and sacrificed burnt offerings and presented fellowship offerings. Afterward they sat down to eat and drink and got up to indulge in revelry. Then the Lord said to Moses, "Go down, because of your people whom you brought out of Egypt have become corrupt. They have been quick to turn away from what I've commanded them, and they made themselves an idol cast in the shape of a calf. They have bowed down to it and have sacrificed it. They have said, 'These are your gods, Israel, and have brought you out of Egypt.' I've seen these people," the Lord said to Moses. "They are a stiff-necked people. Now leave me alone so that my anger may burn against them, that I may destroy them. Then I will make you a great nation." Now, we have the sacrifice of Christ. I realize that. But that does not give us the grace or that we need to not reap a harvest of sin when we make the golden calf. Can be forgiven of it, and we can turn, and we're going to see God turn here. You see how quick, though? He was ready to say, "Okay, Moses, I'll make you a great nation, but I can't do that with them." Moses sought the favor of the Lord and said, "Why should your anger burn against your people whom you brought out of Egypt with great power and a mighty hand?" So Moses is appealing to God. "Why should the Egyptians say, 'It is with evil intent that you brought them out to kill them in the mountains, to wipe them off the face of the earth?' Turn from your fierce anger, relent, and do not bring disaster on your people. Remember your servants Abraham," so he's saying, remember the covenant, of Abraham, Isaac, and Israel, to whom you swore by yourself. I will make your descendants as numerous as the stars in the sky, and I will give your descendants all the land I promised, and it will be their inheritance. Then the Lord relented and did not bring disaster on what he had threatened. I believe that has been my prayer over the last decade. God, please have mercy on me. Please have mercy on our nation, and please return us to your favor. Please, Lord, please remember the covenant you made with our forefathers that set up our Constitution. Lord, my prayer has been that. Lord, we don't deserve your mercy and grace, but there is a remnant that have accepted Christ in our land and prayed, please, God, heal our land. Humble ourselves and pray and ask him to heal our land. That's what our prayers should be, have been. We have to go from a spirit of Saul to a spirit of David, and we're going to look at that comparison in just a moment. If you try to make, I've already said, if you try to make this, try to parallel a man, we don't have a king in our land. It's different. Jesus is our king, okay? We have a government with 3 branches. Rather than doing that, let's look at what caused Saul to be rejected as king and what caused David to be the most successful king Israel ever had. Let's remember, as I said earlier, Saul ruled 42 years and David ruled 40 years. As the spiritual revolution, let's look in what happened here. As the spiritual revolution starts and God begins to turn the tables on what the enemy direction he thought he could keep us in. That started with prayers out of schools. What is God going to do? What is it that Samuel, in 1 Samuel 13, and I'm going to read you some scripture on the David side. I'm just going to paraphrase, but you can study it out. 1 Samuel 13. Saul disobeyed God and submitted to fear when his men scattered at Gilgal, and because he feared for his own life. He was supposed to wait 7 days for Samuel to show up, the prophet, to offer the sacrifice. Now, back in the days, the king had limitations that they could do, and the prophet the priest had what they're supposed to do. And you didn't mix the two. The king would not would not do the priest's job, and vice versa. So basically, when Saul began to see things scatter, instead of waiting on God, he became fearful, and he said, "Look, bring me the offerings, and we'll sacrifice." So that was not what happened. I mean, that was not what as soon as he did that, isn't this the way God works sometimes? As soon as he got it all prepared, Samuel showed up and said, "What are you doing? What have you done?" And basically, God rejected him as king. There was one other thing that he did in Samuel 15, 1 Samuel 15, just one other, skip a chapter and go to 15. And God told him to completely destroy the Amalekites and leave nothing behind. But Saul only destroyed what was weak and kept the best. Many of you know that story. He kept the best. Prophet showed up, said, "What have you done?" And he said, "Oh, I've taken care of everything just like the Lord told me. Wiped out all the Amalekites." The prophet said, "Well, why do I hear sheep in the background? What's that sound?" Again, the Lord, the principle there is that Saul had a tough time obeying God and having the faith that it takes. Now let's look at what David did. David ruled through peace, through strength. David was willing to go into what looked like an impossible situation and obey and capture the fortress of Zion. And when he did, he grew stronger and stronger. 2 Samuel, turn to 2 Samuel 5, verse 6. 2 Samuel 5, verse 6. Picking up in the NIV. It says, "The king and his men," this is David after he's becoming king, after he's on the offense. "The king and his men marched to Jerusalem to attack the Jebusites who lived there. The Jebusites said to David, You will not get in here. Even the blind and the lame can the blind and the lame can ward you off. They thought David cannot get in here. Nevertheless, David captured the fortress of Zion, which is the city of David. On that day, David had said, anyone who conquers the Jebusites will have to use the water shaft to reach those lame and blind who are David's enemies. That is why they say the blind and the lame will not enter the palace. David took up residence in the fortress and called it the city of David. He built the area around it and the terraces inward, and he became more and more powerful. Your breakout will not be seen or assisted by those that are non-believers around you. It will look impossible. Then, moving on, he also inquired of the Lord on his next battle, should I go after the Philistines? Another battle where he was a heavily underdog. But he relied on God, and the Bible says in verse 17, when the Philistines heard that David had been anointed king over Israel, they went up in full force to search for him. But David heard about it and went down into their stronghold. Now the Philistines had come and spread out in the valley. So David inquired of the Lord, shall I go and attack the Philistines? Will you deliver them into my hands? The Lord answered, go, for I will surely deliver them into your hands. So David went, and there he defeated them. He said, and this is what we're going to say today, as the waters break out, the Lord has broken out against the enemies before me. That is where we are today. If we can allow that purification process to take place, allow that God's calling us to be an eagle. If we could get some music up here, we're going to, just a minute, just allow God to break out against our enemies. I told y'all I would get us downstairs at a reasonable time. But let's make sure that God breaks out against our enemies. He wants to do it. He wants us to break out. He knows that we can't do it. It's an impossible situation, but He is about to do it for you. He is about to establish us in the city of David, and we are the kings and the queens and the priests. We rule at a higher level. We rule from the heavenlies, but we have to know Him and His principles to soar with Him, to be able to have the vision that He wants us to have. Amen? Amen. All right. What I'm going to ask you to do, if you could just play something here for us, and I want to ask you to just search in your hearts right now what it is that you want to deal with God on. Where have you been down on the ground in a skirmish or a battle God has not called you to? Something that is beneath you. Is it something from your past? Is it someone that wronged you? Is it something you haven't been able to break in your life that's a result of that wilderness situation? Whatever it is, let's lay it down today. Let's put it at the altar. We have a sacrifice. We don't have to wait for Samuel to show up to offer our sacrifices. Aren't we glad? Aren't we glad that we can offer sacrifices to the Lord through the sacrifice of Jesus Christ? Then once we lay that down and we put it on the altar, we're going to ask that the Lord break out against our enemies and that unity comes over this house, over our families, over our children, over everything that we need so that we can go through and take what God has for us to take. Do you believe that can happen today? All right, I'm going to open up the altars. Let's all just stand to our feet for just a moment. And I'm going to open up the altars. That way, and if you need to sit back down in a moment. But I just want everybody to be able to find that place, because I heard the Lord say, now we, church, should be the ones that open up the purification. God, start with us. Here I am, send me. Let us, Lord, be an example of leadership. Let us be an example of racial reconciliation. Let us be an example of moving past the injustices that we've committed or that we've been a victim of. And let us forgive, and let us move to a place of true authority, which is knowing God, and then we can make an impact. So I just want to ask you as we play and just to sing, is there any music or anything that we can, how about that chorus we had, or that Doris had them singing? I believe, okay. I just believe that we need to, sometimes you just need to be able to sing to God and do business with God, because as you release that, I'm telling you, He's going to break out against your enemies. Amen. And as we get to the end, we're going to decree that together. But before we just decree it together, I want to make sure that everybody agrees that it's an enemy. I want to give everybody the opportunity to rise above that. So start that chorus, and you all just lay that down. If you want to come to the altar, you can. If you want to be there in your seat, the main thing is that you do business with God as we sing this chorus.